Hey there, Deluxe fans! Hope you're feeling exceptionally magical today. Disney's Encanto followed the Madrigal family and focused on how strong of a bond the members of the family each have with the miracle that was granted to their family decades before. In Encanto, we got to meet the magical Casita, who practically becomes its own character and member of the Madrigal family. And seeing how Casita is where the bulk of the movie took place, the audience got to grow attached to the home and become really familiar with its quirks and personality. Throughout the movie, we saw that Casita seemed to hold the family together, which typically would be something that would be seen as a positive. However, it would appear that the idea of a house holding together and protecting its family has a link to Disney that is darker than what you would think. A link that connects the film directly to a tragedy that came over the Walt Disney family following the purchase of a home in Hollywood. Today, we are going to be talking about how Casita from Encanto may have a devastating connection to Walt Disney, and how it compares to other Disney films that share a similar link. Aside from the strong role that Casita played in Disney's Encanto, it turns out that the film's emphasis on the magical home might actually link back to a tragedy that Walt Disney faced early in his career. As Disney was beginning to see massive success following the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs back in 1937, he came into quite a bit of money. Despite the film's release during the Great Depression, Snow White still managed to earn Disney $8 million almost immediately, and that revenue only continued to grow. This was the most money that any film had managed to earn up to that point in history, and it likely made Walt Disney feel pretty great about his ambition. Well, with a feeling of accomplishment in his heart, he couldn't help but think about his family, specifically his mother, Flora called Disney, and his father, Elias Disney, and how they had supported him growing up. In return for their love that their parents showed them, Walt, along with his brother Roy Disney, purchased a house for them that was located in North Hollywood. The house was located relatively close to Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California, and I'm sure that the two brothers couldn't have been more proud of their actions to help their parents out. Sadly, this feeling of pride was quickly flipped into sorrow and guilt. You see, Walt's parents were very happy with the home that their children had gifted to them and wouldn't dream about complaining. However, around a month after they moved into the home, Flora would let her son know that there was a small issue with the gas-powered furnace that was in the house. She complained about the fumes that were leaking out of the furnace, and right away, her son Walt sent a group of repairmen from Disney Studios over to fix the issue, and in his mind, that was the last of it. The problem appeared to be fixed, at least briefly, but sadly, it was only a temporary fix and the fumes were soon an issue again. Only this time, neither Flora nor Elias wanted to bother their children with the issue, so the problem continued to go unresolved. And if you know anything about gas leaks or fumes, you know how dangerous that is. A leaking gas furnace in a home can lead to countless problems, and in the worst case, it can cause the deaths of those living in the home. Sadly, Disney's parents would experience the worst case scenario. It's said that Disney's parents actually wrote a letter to his sister Ruth, which described how amazing the house was and how much they loved it. But in the letter, it would also say that their only complaint was the fumes coming from the furnace. And just a few days after sending this letter out, the housekeeper that worked at the Disney home woke up to find both Elias and Flora in serious danger. Elias was unconscious from the fumes, and sadly, Flora had already died. This marked a very dark day in the Disney family, and one that none of them would ever forget. It's strongly believed that Walt blamed himself for what happened, and that's something that he carried with him for the rest of his life. Not only did he purchase the house that killed his mother, but he also felt horrible for not having the leaking furnace properly fixed in the first place. It's also believed that these feelings of guilt can be spotted in almost every film that Disney Studios has released since the incident, including Encanto. Disney's Encanto is believed by some fans to directly relate to the tragedy that befell the Disney family in more cases than just one. Throughout Encanto, we learn that even though they are all gifted and powerful, the Madrigal is just like any normal family at the end of the day, meaning that they have personal familial issues much like most families deal with, whether it be sibling rivalries, disagreements, or even some family members playing favoritism. It's all very real relationships that family members have with one another in real life. But the one thing that seems to hold the Madrigal family together beyond that magic is their magical home, Casita. Casita is seen throughout the movie taking care of every member of the Madrigal family. It not only kept them safe, but also did everything it could to make life more convenient for them. And when you think about it, that's almost the exact opposite of what the house that Disney bought ended up doing for his parents. While Casita did everything to keep the Madrigals safe, Disney's home was the direct cause of Flora Disney's death, which, as we said, is something that Walt carried around with him for the rest of his life. On top of Casita representing the safe place that the Disney home was meant to be, there is also a comparison that can be easily made between Disney's mother and Abuela Alma. We mentioned that Disney's mother didn't want to bother her children with the issue that she and her husband were having with the leaky furnace, especially not after it had been supposedly fixed. Instead, Flora did everything she could to keep her household running as smoothly as possible, even though she was fairly sure about something that was still wrong with the furnace. Does that remind you of anyone from Encanto? Maybe someone who, despite knowing about Bruno's vision of Casita crumbling, but still tried to make sure everything was fine all by herself? Abuela Alma was clearly the matriarch of the Madrigal household, and much like Flora Disney, she didn't want to burden her family with the problems that she thought she could handle herself. Meanwhile, as Casita proceeds to crack and crumble down around her, she does her best to act as if everything is fine, and she can fix the miracle by marrying off her granddaughter and keeping everyone happy. This proves detrimental to the Madrigal family, as well as their amazing Casita that did end up crumbling, though everything is fixed in the end, and Encanto puts a nice spin on the situation. And after looking at all of that, it's hard not to see the similarities between Encanto and the tragic story about the death of Walt Disney's mother. It's about a matriarch who is concerned about her family's safety in their home but doesn't want to burden anyone with the issue, which ends up with the house tragically falling to the ground. Only, as we mentioned, Encanto had a happier ending than the real story. Now, Encanto and the Casita weren't the only times that Disney referenced or seemed to connect to its founder's tragic history. In fact, there was an old theory that cited the death of Disney's mother as a reason for the lack of maternal presences in most Disney films. In movies like Bambi, which follow a character who has to learn to live with the death of their mother from a very young age, to movies like Pinocchio, where the character doesn't appear to have a mother at all, and only a father. There are countless connections that can have been made from these films to Disney's past, and I'm betting the list is a bit longer than you expect. Like, how about Beauty and the Beast? Belle has a father who is the one who raised her and took care of her, but her mother isn't present in the film. She's actually not mentioned at all in the animated film, and in the live-action reimagining, she died when Belle was just a baby. Cinderella is also a similar, but also a very different situation. While Cinderella did have a maternal figure in her life, she was not a good one. It was her horrid, evil stepmother who made her life a living hell, which is basically like not having a mother at all. Another great example of a Disney film where there is absolutely zero sign of any maternal figure is the underwater classic The Little Mermaid. While Ariel knows her father and has been cared for by him, we never got to meet her mother, and we learn that she actually ended up dying, maybe even being killed, according to some Disney fans, while Ariel was still very young. This means for most of her life, she was raised by her father and the other marine life that was around her that whom she became friends with. Some of the Disney and Pixar films have even swapped the roles and have had the father figure missing from the film, which still follows the same theme. For instance, we never once meet Andy's father in any of the Toy Story movies, or in Pixar's Onward, though we get to see the bottom half of the children's father, they never really got to spend time with him, and Ian doesn't remember anything about him since he was so young when his father died. Whether it be missing a mother or missing a father, there are hardly any Disney films where both parents are present in their child's life. Now, it's important to note that some people believe that this theory has been debunked, as a lot of the more recent Disney films will feature both parents present for the child's life. For example, we have Moana. She was lucky enough to grow up in the presence of both of her parents, and they both loved and cared for her as parents should. This led a group of fans to believe that this disproved the idea that Disney pulled from the tragedy and referenced it in their movies. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think the fact that Disney Studios has begun to branch out takes away from the idea that some of the films appear to be connected to what happened in Walt Disney's life, including Encanto. For Disney, Casita was likely just another way to express what happened to Disney's parents in their new home. Only unlike the real tragedy, Encanto had a happy ending. While some fans believe that the theory isn't entirely accurate, considering the fact that not every Disney film is without a mother or maternal figure, it's hard not to see a connection between some aspects of Disney stories and the tragedy that Walt and his family had to go through after purchasing that home. And considering the fact that a lot of artists tend to pull insight and inspiration from things and experiences that have happened in their own lives, I wouldn't personally be surprised if Disney did reference the death of his mother and how it affected him in his studio's movies. movies. But what do you guys think? Is there a chance that Casita is a dark reference to what happened to Walt Disney's parents? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. As for now, that's all, Disney fans. Let us know what video you'd like to see next in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.